The Dutch asset management landscape is both historic and evolving, and few firms embody that blend of tradition and modern relevance like OHV. Founded through roots that go back to 1932 and grown through decades of market cycles, OHV isn't just one of the oldest independent financial houses in the Netherlands. It's the one that keeps innovating while staying true to its values. Today, we explore how a nearly 100-year-old firm stays relevant, how it serves both private and institutional clients, and what leadership looks like when you've been part of that journey for more than 3 decades. Hi, and welcome to Wealth Insider, a podcast by Performativ. This is where industry meets insight, where we sit down for honest and engaging conversations with voices from every corner of the financial world. Together, we explore trends, strategies, and partnerships that are shaping the future of wealth management. Wealth Insider brings you closer to the people and the ideas that are driving the industry forward. Welcome back to Wealth Insider. I'm your host, Christian Lindvall, Global Commercial Director at Performativ. Today, we're thrilled to be joined by Erik Bakker, CEO of OHV, which is one of the most established independent asset managers in the Netherlands. Erik, welcome to the show.
Christian, thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. We're thrilled to have you. And I think a good place to kick off, for those not familiar with OHV, maybe you can tell us a bit about it, its history, and maybe mission in general.
Well, OHV exists since 1932, and we are in the business of taking care of other people's capital. And OHV was, in the previous century, we were an institutional broker. And this century, we moved into wealth and asset management. And also, we don't provide services just to institutional clients, but we also provide services to retail clients. And that, in a nutshell, is the history of OHV.
Yeah. And I'm really interested in your story because you joined in 1990. Yes. Is that correct? And you've had quite an extensive journey at OHV. You're now the CEO. What has kept you sort of motivated and energized around staying at one place for that long?
Okay. Well, I joined OHV after a traineeship with Commerzbank, and I got approached for a offer on the desk of interest rate derivatives, which was a new product at that time. And I liked the innovative character of it, and I also liked entrepreneurship within OHV. But also, maybe this sounds naive, but also the prospect that you could become an owner within the company gave for me an extra element for choosing OHV. And within OHV, like I said, I started as a broker on interest rate derivatives. Then I moved on to being broker on bonds. But what the main shift was within OHV, which also will explain my journey thereafter, was the entrance of the euro. And that made OHV rethinking about the future, because before the euro we had a Dutch guilder, and we had also a relevance for international clients, and that changed overnight. So we had to rethink ourselves, and we thought to ourselves, we know a lot about fixed income markets, we know a lot about risk, so that's our core business. It's not strictly the brokerage, but it's the depth and the knowledge of the markets and the services we can provide for our clients. And then we switched into wealth and asset management. And I started up with my colleagues wealth management and asset management. And sometimes you need a bit of luck too, because when we sat down at a table like this, thought to ourselves, we couldn't apply for a wealth management firm. Mm-hmm. It was the prelude of the global financial crisis. Yeah. And we had some smaller institutional clients in our relationship asking us about the problems they had in their portfolio. Yeah. They had a lot of bonds with acronyms, all starting with the C. And at the same time, we asked for the permit. We had those clients to start off, and that was the start of our wealth management. And then from that on, we extended our service to retail clients, and we started up our own investment funds. We started executing our own trades for our wealth management clients, and later on we started again in SME loans.
Mm-hmm. So you really had the full breadth of, as you guys have expanded as a business, you've been a part of every step, and so opportunity arose as the company continued to evolve and expand.
Yeah. Like market change, client wishes change, and OHV allowed me to change with it as well, and that's what I really like.
Yeah.
I could step out of my comfort zone each time when an opportunity arises, and that's where I am still today. I'm financial markets. It's a thrill to be in. Every day something's happening, and I enjoy every second of it.
Yeah, so OHV has been around for nearly 100 years.
Yeah,
It's a long time for any organization, maybe especially in the financial sector. What has allowed it to stay so relevant?
I think you should follow changes, and it sounds maybe a bit abstract in society. And also, you should really listen to client wishes.
Right.
And so you have to adapt yourself non-stop. And you have to grow out of your comfort zone. You have to dare to start something new out of your core. And that starts in the beginning internally. So, you must create an environment where it's allowed to fail. And then you try again, and until you're successful. And also, it's very important that you have an open atmosphere among each other, an equal atmosphere, because it's very important. We believe that you talk with each other and not about each other, and that sort of creates an environment where you can move along with your client wishes, and also, to know and to feel what's going on in society. I think it's very important that you non-stop hire young people, talented people, whom you give responsibility at the start. Because, I believe what our most famous soccer player and part-time philosopher Johan Cruyff once said, if you're good enough, you're old enough. And that makes you feel like you are... what the society wants.
I'm curious, because you guys have been around for so long, nearly 100 years, have there been legacy customers or families that have stayed with you over that full time? Obviously, you want to evolve and grow and get new customers every year. That's but there's this seeming thread through OHV around customer centricity, and that seems to be sort of the foundation for you. Is that accurate?
Yes. Okay, we are in the long-term relationship business. I think we have clients who I know since I'm there, since 35 years. Institutions remain clients even if they merge and grow bigger. And also with retail clients, when you start a relationship, you are in it probably at least for a decade. Because and also nowadays we can, because we do so much services, and products, we can also introduce clients to another product or service of us, which prolongs the relationship we have with our clients.
So over the years, there's been so many technological changes, probably some shifting in investor expectations. What's been the most dramatic change in how you service clients compared to maybe how you did when you started in 1990?
Yeah, well, it's all about, I think, client accessibility for your clients, and I think that's has been the biggest change. That your client has experience also in other fields, and he or she wants to have the same experience from a wealth or asset manager. So you need to provide that as well, and at the same time, you must be he or she must be secure that the data are safe. So it's about accessibility. It's about safeguarding the data. It's also about that an employee of OHV is anywhere, anytime available for his client. So he or she must also have access to the system through the cloud. And I think that those were the biggest changes of the last couple of years. Now we're entering, of course, in a new phase with AI. Which will impact the back, mid, and the front office of OHV. And we currently also set up different working groups trying to build features on AI. Then you must think of reading annual accounts of SME companies, fraud detection, portfolio construction, but all as an extension of the tooling we need to provide good service to our customers.
Yeah. I am curious around client expectations, and in 1990 probably the expectations were much different, but I'm wondering, with the proliferation of information that people have at the tip of their finger, right? They can search, they can subscribe to different like financial podcasts, investing podcasts. Does that impact their expectation towards you? Or do they still generally, like, how much are they guiding the conversation on, like, I've read this, I want to become a client of OHV, but here's the methodology I'd like to use? Are you running into that at all? Where?
No, that sounds more like you're providing like an execution services for the client who wants to decide themselves. That's what we don't do.
Yeah.
At the start, you start to talk about your client, about the wishes, and with institutional clients, you start to talk about the wishes of the stakeholders behind the institutional client, and from that you build a relationship. And information, the accessibility information is also relative, because it doesn't really change. Like 30 years ago, the information came out of newspapers, and we had the systems. And now the information comes indeed from podcasts, etc. But still, we have the information on special systems like the Bloombergs of this world, which gives every information every nanosecond. So you are still always ahead of information.
Ahead of the curve. Okay.
Yeah,
makes sense. So OHV offers a range of services, anywhere from tailored asset management to export financing. Can you walk us through the main services and then how they all fit together organizationally?
Okay. Yeah, we do wealth management, and we do that for retail and for institutional clients. We do asset management. We have our own funds. We do brokerage. We execute trades for our own clients, but also for external clients. And we do SME financing. And SME financing, we do generic SME financing, but also some niches, like export finance. And for us, it feels like not having 4 different business lines, but it's like one platform which reinforces each other. Because, for instance, if you do institutional asset management, those institutional clients, they have some requirements about reporting. It must be tailor-made, and it must be tip-top. Also, if you have niches in, for instance, SME lending in mandates, because of the knowledge we have in institutional wealth management on the reporting side, we can provide this reporting also to the mandates on SME lending. And so there are more crossovers I can think of, which reinforces us as a organization.
So maybe we can talk a bit about the brokerage side of the business. How does offering a proprietary brokerage capability support your AM offering?
Okay. Yeah, we for us, it's very critical to have this in our organization. We like to have the whole chain in our own hands and not delegate it to another institution, because it gives, in the end, the client an added value, and it gives us, like for instance, bonds. Bonds are really a fragmented market. It's a bilateral market, and we have acquaintances and relationships with all the major banks worldwide. And because of this, we can, for instance, subscribe in new issues. And every new bond issue comes with an issuance premium, an extra yield, and we can pass that on to our clients. Also, because of this fragmentation of the market, we get access, interests from counterparties to buy and sell bonds, which make us on the first row of information we can act upon, and then we can execute trades on mid-market instead of always paying the bid-offer spread. And also because of this, we can give an extra yield to our clients. And also we are ahead of the information, because if something happens, we hear it at first, and that's why we can move faster as well. So in the end, for us, it's very critical to be a wealth manager with a focus on fixed income to do the brokerage in-house.
So how does OHV balance long-term portfolio discipline with today's evolving risks?
Well, for us, when we start to construct a portfolio, it begins with risk. And if you protect the downside, the returns will follow. And there's a lot of information coming to you, a lot of stories every day. There are several stories, but we don't really act on stories. We try to buy predictable cash flows for our clients, and we do an active management that we look at the creditworthiness of an issuer, at the liquidity of a portfolio, at the collateral of a borrower, and from that we construct a reliable portfolio which can stand the test of times and provide returns for our clients through a different cycle of economic up and downturns.
How often are you mitigating circumstances or even maybe evolving portfolio construction, one that's been built out you think is rock solid, but are you deviating from that often or tweaking or perhaps adding more nuance to something that you've built maybe 3 months ago and now market conditions have changed? How often does that occur?
Not to be honest, not very often. We stick to like trends are mostly multi-year. Mm-hmm. So in bonds we have a shorter duration, and 3-4 years ago maybe we had a duration of 2. Now we stepped it up to the duration of 3 to 4 years. Also with allocation to equities. We try to focus, we try to buy names who are rock solid in the sense that they can set their own terms in the market, that they have a unique USP, and even if they must raise a price, they don't lose their customers. So, and also in equity markets, in the end, it's all about the profits a company can make. And then in between the markets can change, but in the end, equity markets follow the profits of a company.
Are there like massive changing client expectations with that, or are you kind of setting the tone for, okay, we have a sustainability philosophy and we stick to that?
Okay, well, sustainability, we're not a sustainable wealth manager, but we integrate sustainability in our business. Like 10 years ago, when you started with a customer and you started to construct a portfolio, you did it through a triangle risk, return, and costs. And nowadays it's a square. Sustainability comes along. When we start with retail clients, we ask out for their sustainable preferences, and we take that into account. With institutional clients, sustainability is a feature depending on the stakeholders. That's we need to tailor about that. And also, if we lend out to SME companies, at start we have an ESG questionnaire, and we ask that out every other year to follow up about the results being made. And also, we do institutional wealth management. Each one have their own preference. For instance, we have a client for whom we do also SME lending in a certain niche, and they require some SDG job, responsible jobs and climate action, and we take that into account as well. We have another institutional client who wants to give something back to the society, and they like to do social impact loans. That meaning lending out to SME companies who hire people with a distance to the labor market. So we can do tailor-made servicing not only on the construction of portfolio in regards of return and risks, but also on regards of sustainability or impact.
Yeah. I think there's been such a buzz around ESG over the last 5-6 years, but it seems to be fading a little bit. What do you think about the trend there?
We see that also with our retail clients. We, like 6-7 years ago, when we first asked out what are your sustainable requirements and wishes, we had a lot of reactions like, what is this? Is this a real email from the company? Is this a scam? Is this phishing? And then like 2-3 years ago, about 70% of our retail clients had sustainable wishes. And now it's decreasing a bit indeed. So in that also we follow society and we follow the wishes of the clients.
Yeah. So last couple questions for you. I'm curious to know what you think the biggest opportunities are ahead for OHV, maybe 2 years from now and then 10 years from now.
After a decade of zero and negative interest rates start to rise again. And managing interest rate risk is relevant again. And that's exactly where we can come along and provide extra value. And that's why it's very important that we build a infrastructure in-house, that we have the whole chain in our own hands. We can source the bonds ourselves. We can source the SME loans ourselves. We do the credit analysis. We can book it out. We do the reporting. And because of this, we can provide a better service to our clients. And the proof is in the pudding, because we have a lot of institutional clients who take the service in this field. And they are from government agencies to insurance companies to financial institutions and to foundations. So, and this institutional base that we have, we provide this also to our retail clients. So our retail clients can benefit of the institutional infrastructure we have. And I think the time is now for us to grow upon that. And it takes now discipline and execution to grow further from here.
Yeah, you've been with OHV again since 1990. You kind of grew up there, and then have now transitioned into top leadership position as CEO. How do you manage to keep sort of that long history of OHV, the sort of proud history of like you've built a really great company over the last 100 years, but still innovate every day and push forward? How do you balance those things as a leader?
I was hired by former management, and they were there also decades. So I was hired in 1990 by some guys who worked there since 1960. So I have like 60 to 7 years of history of this company. And what I learned from these guys is that they really gave everybody the confidence that if you have an idea, you have to work it out, and then you can execute on that. And I think that's still relevant for us today, and that made us also switching from just institutional clients to retail clients, from switching from just executing trades to being a wealth manager. Also to set up our own funds. And also in the previous century, the Dutch capital markets, it was basically a loan market. Loans, nowadays we call it private debt. And nowadays private debts are back in vogue again. So we can work on our heritage again with loans. And we have some successes there as well. So I think you feel this still every day in the company, that we like to grow, and we like to explore new activities out of our core.
Yeah, and it seems like, again, I know you mentioned before, the hiring young talent is sort of an ethos.
Yes.
Yourself, your leadership style,
yes.
OHV in general.
Yeah.
How have you seen that impact the company over the last few years? Out of curiosity.
How to hiring young?
Hiring young people when you're talking about using maybe agentic AI, incorporating that. Well,
I think also you mentioned the word leader. it's a load. I don't really like
Loaded term. Yeah.
It's a loaded term. I don't really like it. I see, for instance, myself as a in Dutch it's called primus inter pares, because all those young people, they have skills in their specific fields or relationships with certain clients, and they all do that better than I do. What I do is I set the direction. I represent the company externally. I communicate internally what we want, what we accomplish, and I try to think about business lines, not in this calendar year, but in the calendar years ahead. And in the meantime, we give our younger people a lot of responsibility, but also we come together as several groups in our companies very often. We set every department can set their own goals, and we share that. The company sets multi-year goals, and we translate that into 1-year goals, and then each department chooses their quarter goals. And with everybody in the departments, we rebalance that the quarterly goals every month. How are you going? Do you need help to get to your goal? And this way, we try to get everybody aligned about the goals of the company. So, I think as a young person, it's a very attractive way to work, because I always say when you come to work for OHV, you cannot blame anybody else. If you succeed, you can look into the mirror and compliment yourself. Yeah. But if you don't succeed, it's also partly because of you.
Fantastic. I think that's a great place to end. Erik, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Christian.
That's it for today's episode of Wealth Insider. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find more insight on Performativ.com, and we'll be back soon with more conversations from the people redefining wealth management.